and they can't be brought back. I'm happy to yield to the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to reel us back into what is really important today. And I want to say thank you to every one of our witnesses here, especially those that have been affected by the scourge of gun violence, our family members, our victims. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for our expert witnesses who've been doing this work for so long, I too am a gun violence survivor. And that is the reason why I sit here today before you, because I know how important it is that we change the entire culture that every community in this country is suffering under with the extremism of gun violence in America. And sadly, today we are here to address the tragedy in Uvalde. We are here to address the 19 children and 2 teachers murdered by an 18-year-old with 2 assault weapons and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. Yesterday, we commemorated the 10th anniversary of the massacre at Sandy Hook, a decade to the day since 20 first graders and 6 teachers were murdered by a 20-year-old who fired over 150 bullets from his Bushmaster in under 5 minutes. In Sandy Hook, 15 children in Lauren Russo's classroom were murdered. One, a 6-year-old girl, she played dead among the other bodies, and she was the only one to survive. Covered in blood, the first thing that she said to her mother was, "Mommy, I'm okay, but all my friends are dead." In Uvalde, an 11-year-old, Mia Cerillo, saw her friend shot next to her. She smeared the blood of her friend all over herself and played dead on the floor. In that decade, the decade that passed between these 2 murders of our children, no substantial gun safety legislation was ever signed into law. After first graders were murdered in Sandy Hook, it took a decade and the murder of 4th graders in Uvalde before we finally were able to pass substantial legislation that helps to protect our children and to keep our families safe. I promise you, this is only the beginning. It's imperative that our efforts to build on these gun safety policies continue, and we cannot afford to wait another decade, another 5 years, another 2 years. We cannot afford 10 more years. We cannot not allow another Uvalde, another Parkland, nor another Sandy Hook. America is crying out, demanding that Congress act and that we act now. Dr. Guerrero, you are a pediatrician who treated many of the children in Uvalde. In the past, you've described both what you saw, what you heard, the damage those guns and bullets caused to children from just mere feet away. Parents, you describe, screaming, crying, and begging for their children. As someone who has retold the tragedy of losing my own son to gun violence, I recognize that this is not an easy thing to relive over and over again. But could you please share with the American public, as what I have expressed before, your words, and they were refuted by my Republican colleagues, but can you please share with us, describe the scene inside the hospital during the aftermath of that terrible day?
So as I arrived to the hospital, there were multiple parents outside, some of which recognized me, and immediately started screaming their children's names, asking for me to find them. As I walked into the hallway of the hospital, chaos ensued. There was blood on the floor, children that were bloodied sitting in chairs in the hallways. One of them was Mia Cerillo, who spoke with us at the last committee meeting. And just utter chaos and just pandemonium. It almost seemed like a movie that really didn't exist. By this point, I was just trying to help the parents outside find their victim children, and this is when I was brought to see these 2 children that I spoke of earlier that were that were deceased. And as the day progressed, we were told to wait for 14, 15 more kids that were coming, of course, that never came. And in our hearts, we knew that they had passed and that they had been killed on this day. Until this day, the community still suffers. We're in pain. We're not healed in any way or any way or fashion. But we know that we'll continue to fight. So this never happens to anyone ever again.
Thank you so very much for your courage, each and every one of you, the family members. My heart goes out to you because I understand exactly where you are and how you feel. And I promise you that I and my colleagues here on this committee, Democrats, will do everything that we can to protect and serve you going forward. And I yield back.